Good evening, everyone, and very warm welcome to our today's E2E event in partnership, once again, with the world's leading serviced office provider, IWG PLC. I'd also like to extend a warm welcome to the people joining us on LinkedIn Live. So we are trying LinkedIn Live today. So if you're joining us on the social media channels, we hope that you'll interact and enjoy the next 90 minutes with us. This is the latest in the E2E Unfiltered series, enabling our community, which is what I'm very, very proud about, to have an interactive live conversation with the globally leading disruptive entrepreneurs and to be able to meet each other. So we're going to do breakout sessions at 7 o'clock. So not only will you have the opportunity to meet the formidable Yoni Assia, you'll also have a chance to meet some of our participants today. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Shalini Khemka. I'm the founder of E2E. This evening, we're thrilled to have, as I mentioned earlier, Yoni Assia. He's the co-founder and he's the Chief Executive of eToro. I'm hoping all of you would have heard of eToro. It's the world's leading and the youngest, he's one of the world's leading and youngest, I'd say, fintech disruptors. So Yoni, congratulations for doing so well at such a young age. In 2020, Yoni was named one of the top 40 under 40 in no other than Fortune magazine, which, as you know, is the place to be branded and seen. So Yoni, huge congratulations on that. eToro is one of the world's leading social investment platforms. And believe it or not, I was shocked. I didn't realize it was this big. So I'm learning every day. 20 million registered users globally. So again, huge congratulations to how you've done that in a short period of time. So our theme for this evening, it's a fireside chat. So I've got the honor and the pleasure of having a fireside chat with Yoni. It's a chat on his entrepreneur's journey, the full cycle from how he came up with the idea, the inception, and the way that he's created something very innovative and disruptive, and it's now going into a public listing. eToro is going public via a special purpose acquisition vehicle, or you might all know it as a SPAC, which is now the thing that a lot of companies are looking into for the small equity value. Let me put it as the small equity value of 10.4 billion. Can I just repeat that? So congratulations, Yoni. I mean, this is something we are excited about for you, and it's such an honor to have the opportunity to profile how you've got to this stage. As entrepreneurs and business owners, we all dream about completing our journey. But this evening, we're fortunate enough to hear from someone who has accomplished it and at significant scale with all of the difficulties surrounding a complex, fast-growing business in his industry, which is very regulated and a super competitive market. So in terms of this evening's format, I'm going to introduce one of our corporate partners. And as you know, Richard Morris and IWG have been a partner of E2E for 5 years now. And it's the world's largest workspace solutions provider. And he's going to kindly talk you through some of the partnership benefits and also some of the great innovative things that IWG have been doing recently. And I've been impressed to see how they've pivoted the business actually during COVID. So following Richard, I'll introduce Yoni officially, and then we'll have our online breakout session at 7 o'clock. And so the majority of the session will be to learn about Yoni's incredible journey and the whole business of eToro. After, we invite you to have a Q&A. So as I said earlier, this is your opportunity to chat to him and ask him as many questions as you can. And Yoni, I hope you don't mind me saying some of them will be difficult questions, some of them will be straightforward questions about your life's journey. So we encourage the audience and our members who are here today to interact with you. Please put your camera on if you can, if you feel happy to do that. Unmute yourself and ask the question. What I'd ask you to do is, if you wouldn't mind to use the participants button or the raise hand button, then I can then order it such that people have got their hands up. If for any reason I miss it, just raise your hand like this, and hopefully I'll spot you and ask you to fire away with your questions. So as I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes talking about E2E for those of you that are new. E2E stands for Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur Exchange. It's all about enabling extraordinary entrepreneurship. We do this in a variety of ways. We do much, much more than put on events. Easiest way, as most of you will know, we describe ourselves as the match.com of entrepreneurship. We enable people to meet and network and really help each other through interaction. We have an investment vehicle, so we help find the right investors for companies. We recently supported a profit track company called Vashi with their fundraising. Urdu is online. He's running the investment side of the business. We help people find talent. So if you're looking for a non-exec or talent in any way, talk to us. And we help companies with their exits, buy side, sell side, as well as expert advice. So we are that connector. We don't provide all the solutions ourselves, but we know the people who can, and some of it we do it ourselves. As many of you know, we provide complimentary membership, so it's all done at mates rates, but we also have something much more advanced, and it's only at £25 a year. And I thought £25 a month, that would have been very cheap at £25 a year. £300 a year. You have the opportunity to ask us to connect you to people, but also £24,000 of benefits. So if you would like to become our premium member, we would welcome that if you're not already. In addition, E2E's mission is to ensure that Britain is the best place in the world to start and scale a business, because my team and I, we believe that entrepreneurship can not only build a stronger economy, but also lead to a much, much stronger and better society. As many of you know, we work closely with the government. We helped to make sure that the capital gains tax didn't go up earlier this year. We've helped to introduce flexi furlough, as well as the short-time working directive that happened in the autumn economic statement by Rishi Sunak last year. So without further ado, I hope I've given you all a small feel of what's to come and about E2E. I'm going to move across to Richard before welcoming Yoni. And Richard, once again, fabulous to see you, and thank you very much for the partnership, and I'll ask you to say a few words if you wouldn't mind.
Shalini, good evening and a very warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen. There's a helicopter flying overhead where I'm sat right now, so hopefully that's not too loud. So look, first of all, I'm going to just spend a few minutes talking about International Workplace Group, who we are and what we do and who we do it for. But before I do that, I'd just like to say how proud we are to partner with E2E. We've had our partnership now for more than 5 years, and we feel that the community of entrepreneurs and the focus on supporting and helping growing businesses fits well with what we do at International Workplace Group. So really delighted to be able to work with and partner E2E on these events. So very simply, IWG, International Workplace Group, we operate a network, a global network of on-demand workspace. And very simply, we do that to help businesses take the hassle out of fulfilling whatever their workspace requirements are. And that helps them concentrate on their business. It means that they can be more agile and more flexible. They can access workspace where they need it, when they need it, for how long they need it. And certainly in the last year and a half, we've seen this real profound change and shift in how people are going to be working in the future. And our global network of on-demand workspaces, we feel, will play and can play a big part in helping businesses to really embrace the benefits of more flexibility, more remote working, helping their people be more productive by something called hybrid working, this idea that you do work where you need to do it rather than having to head into some large centralized corporate head office. So how do we do that? Well, we're building this network. It's 3,500 locations today, multi-branded. We have a number of brands: Spaces, Regis, Base Point, Clubhouse, HQ, Signature, and more on the way. And the 3,500 locations are in 120 countries, about 1,000 cities. Every far-flung corner of the world, all the way through to large global metropolitan areas. If you download the app on your phone, you can literally, in a second, find an office, find a meeting room, find a hot desk, or use our membership lounges across that network. And the idea is that we provide conveniently located, high quality workspace, literally at the touch of a button. And as I say, this is going to be a real important shift in how people work, more mobility, more flexibility. And do please look us up, download the app, available from the usual places. It's the Regis app, and you'll find all of our 3,500 locations on there. In the UK, we have 400 locations, a completely unique national network of on-demand workspace. 90% of the population in the UK is within 20 minutes of one of our locations. So if you think about this idea of working nearer to home, not needing to commute so much anymore, which is great for people's work-life balance, great for people's productivity, and good for the environment, you can pop down to your local IWG location at the tap of a button. But the good news is that if you're an E2E member, you get special privileges in accessing this network of on-demand workspace. And we're very pleased to be able to offer to E2E members some fantastic promotions, including up to 3 months free on any of our subscription products, as long as you subscribe for a minimum of 6 months. So that could be a co-work desk, a private office, or a lounge membership. We offer 10% off all of our meeting rooms and conference events venues to E2E members as well. And in the spirit of getting people back in the groove of venturing away from their homes, as we've been sort of doing for the last year, we're giving all E2E members free access to our business lounge network over the coming months. So do please look up your local IWG location on the Regis app, and we look forward to working and continuing to partner with E2E. And I'm really looking forward to hear from Yoni about the $10.4 billion valuation, because that's our mission. That is our mission right now. A $10.4 billion valuation would be very good. So looking forward to that. Thank you.
Richard, thank you very much. Yes, there's the challenge. Yoni, you've set us all a challenge. We're going to get to the multi-billion valuations, and really do partnership with the IWG. And Richard, thank you very much for announcing. So today we're announcing for the first time the free access to business lounges for E2E premium members. So hopefully, if you're not a premium member and you'd like to access any of the business lounges, it's pretty much unlimited, which I shouldn't be saying this, but forget about the IOD and forget about all of the other networks. Talk to us, because we can give you access everywhere, as well as all of the other benefits that we provide. So I'm really pleased to be able to work with IWG in that way. And I think right now, with the hybrid working, people working from home, not necessarily going back to a full-time office, if you want to use that, that might be a nice way of getting your foot in the door and seeing what the IWG workspaces are like for you. So now, if I may, I'm going to do my formal introduction of Yoni. And I just want to share a few facts and some background on him. So as I mentioned earlier, we're delighted to have Yoni Assia. He's the founder and CEO of eToro. In 2007, he co-founded eToro with his brother, Ronan, and with David Ring, with the vision of opening the global financial markets so that everyone, which I love the aspiration and the purpose, so that everyone can trade and invest in a simple and transparent way, opening up trading really to our youth. So as mentioned earlier, today eToro is one of the world's leading social investment platforms with over 20 million registered users globally. In March this year, eToro announced the plans to enter into the combination agreement with the Fintech Acquisition Corp 5, which will take eToro public with the implied estimated equity value of $2.4 billion. In 2010, eToro launched its innovative social investment platform along with its copy trading feature, and we'll talk about that in a bit, Yoni, which enables users to follow and copy the strategies of the network's most successful traders. So you get an insight into the most successful traders through this technology that he's built. Then, after several successful rounds of funding, eToro expanded into blockchain, social trading, and eventually established a presence in the world's major trading markets, including the UK, with plans to enter the UK later this year. I was really pleased to hear about that, Yoni, because I'm also a deal maker for the UK government, and what we try and do is we encourage high-tech businesses from around the world to be locating their headquarters here. So you're a case in point and a prime example of how that can happen, coming from Israel and setting up in the UK, as well as I know today you're in Israel, but it's wonderful to hear how you've done that. And my fellow deal makers, they were very excited to hear that you're speaking for us. And I think one of them you met many years ago. His name is Simon Sprint. So in 2018, Yoni established the Good Dollar Foundation, which is a not-for-profit initiative determined to create a sustainable and scalable framework for bringing global universal basic income into the world through new digital asset technologies. And then in 2020, Yoni, as I mentioned earlier, he was named as one of the top 40 under 40 globally by Fortune magazine. In addition to running eToro, he has a young family. So again, that's like running two businesses in a way, having a young family as well as running eToro. So Yoni, thank you very much for joining us today and for taking the time. We know how busy you are, and I'm really delighted to have a conversation with you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kick off the questions, and then I'd suggest everybody to get their questions ready or challenges, and then we'll make it interactive. So if I could start, Yoni, my first question is, when did you develop this passion for the capital markets and this kind of technology and trading, and who influenced you when you were young?
So I've been passionate about capital markets since I was very young. I started trading when I was about 13. I think generally sort of capital markets were very much a part of family at my house. So my father was the CEO and a founder of a NASDAQ listed company called Magic Software, which was the first software company to list on NASDAQ. So we always, my brother just recently reminded me, my brother and partner, that when we were kids, we were coming back from the cinema, and in the street, this was like early 90s, there was the bank, and the quotes of the stocks were showing digitally on the bank's front door. And my father would every time stop there, go and check what's the current quote, and then come back to the car. So it was very much capital markets, always discussing about markets. It's even a longer story because my grandfather founded a bank in Switzerland in the 60s. So we actually he ran a bank before computers, which is very hard to think about these days. We had that in the family of banking and finance, and that got me very passionate about capital markets, which has always fascinated me, how I could make a trade from my house, look at the markets, and then click something on my computer and suddenly see that trade happening all the way NASDAQ, impacting the markets. So I always loved sort of the connectivity of this world of both finance, the internet, capital markets, and then later on blockchain, which sort of is the manifestation of technology into finance.
So it's in the blood as well as, and then you've obviously taken it to a very different level because you've introduced technology into it. So was eToro your first startup?
So I was a programmer, a developer in the Army, in the intelligence unit, and together with a couple of friends from the IDF, we actually built a startup called CD Ride. So when I was 21, I founded my first startup. Very different concept, very different thing. We actually were installing cameras, video cameras on roller coasters. and they were transmitting over Wi-Fi to a booth underneath the roller coaster in places like Paramount and Universal Studios, and people would come to the booth and just buy the DVDs of their entire ride after we edited it. So the only thing related between my first startup CD ride and eToro is that both are a roller coaster.
Wow. Okay. No, and congratulations, because you've obviously evolved from one startup to the next. What was your rationale? Why did you start eToro? What was the purpose behind it?
So I've always been passionate about capital markets. I did my first thesis in my undergrad degree in computer sciences around bubbles and bursts and how to define what's happening in the markets through the lens of information theory and physics. And then in my master's in computer sciences, I started writing my thesis about visualizing financial instruments. And at that time, my brother was doing his master's, Ronen, in the Royal College of Art in London.
Okay.
And he always used to make sort of fun of me that I have an accountant hobby, that I sit in front of multiple screens and I have charts on the screens and I have Excels and spreadsheets on the screens. I have the newspapers all laid up in front of me. And he said, like, it sounds like it's interesting because you talk to our father about it over dinner. This stock is doing that and that stock is doing this. But when I actually look at what you're doing, it's the most horrible user experience you can imagine. And he was doing some work for Bloomberg back then as part of his degree. And that led us to start brainstorming about how can we hack the user experience? How can we really create a different user experience to bring in millions of people to capital markets? And that from day one became sort of the vision of our company, to open the global markets for everyone to trade and invest in a simpler and transparent way. We've always been passionate about capital markets, but very few people. Now we're seeing an inflection point. Now something is definitely changing right now, but historically, not a lot of people were participating actively in the markets, and we believed that through a better user experience, we could bring in many more people into the global markets.
Okay. So what was wrong with the traditional, what did you feel is wrong with the traditional way of trading, and how is eToro different?
So, we started eToro in 2007 before the term fintech was coined. And back then, we had to explain the importance of user experience. I think today it's really straightforward. Our focus is creating a great user experience on the mobile app to create better and simpler access to the markets and a better decision support system, which is the social network. So, first of all, most banks, most financial institutions, whether it's in Israel or Germany or the UK or almost everywhere, it's still it costs a lot of money. It takes time to open an account. Now, things are changing rapidly right now with fintech, but if you think 2007 or 2015, it would still take time to set up an account. It would still, you wouldn't have fractional shares. So you can actually open an account and you download the mobile app, open an account, fund your account with a debit card or a PayPal instantly, and buy a fraction of a share of Tesla, commission free. So that's really about lowering the barriers to entry and making it much simpler. If you think about before fractional shares, commission free and mobile apps, it took days to actually set up an account, and you had to have at least $5,000 or pounds if you just wanted to buy Amazon stock and Google stock and Tesla stock, right? Because you had to buy a whole share of a stock. And traditionally, overseas investing was very expensive. Although today, when you think about it, people all around the world, millennials, are all looking at the same assets at the same time. When Tesla goes up 10%, we see people from all around the world, from 100 different countries, who are looking for Tesla. When Dogecoin or Bitcoin are going up, we see people from all around the world looking to trade that asset that day. So I think the world is becoming global from an information perspective, but financial services are still very much hyper local. So first, it's really about creating a better, simpler access and reducing or lowering significantly the barriers to entry. And the second part is the social network. So what we realized early on, so when we started eToro, this was early days of the social internet, whether it's Facebook or Twitter. And what we had is chat on the platform. And we realized that the majority of users come to eToro. The most engaging part of the platform is the chat. People constantly were asking other people about what they're doing. And so we created the open book back then to enable people to actually see what everybody's doing. So you can actually go to eToro.com and search Yoni Assia to see my personal profile and my statistics over the past 10 years. So you can actually see what other people are doing. So first of all, that reduces the barrier to entry from the fear that you wouldn't know what to do, because you can actually see what other people are doing. You can see their portfolios and the real-time trades, and you can just follow them to see how they're also talking about the market, and you can ask them questions. And later on, we developed the patents and the technology to enable our users to also automatically copy the most successful investors in the network. So you could come to eToro to buy Bitcoin or Tesla or Apple, but you wouldn't necessarily know how to actively trade in the markets day to day. So we brought the sharing economy concept of whether it's Uber and taxis or whether it's Airbnb and hotels into the portfolio management space. So every person who comes to eToro generates a track record. Other people can see them. You can then copy someone with $1,000. What that does is it replicates his entire $1,000 into his entire account into your $1,000. And every time he trades, it trades automatically in your account at the same time, the same price, and the same proportion. So those $1,000 copy basically his returns in his portfolio, and then we pay out of our marketing budget to our top investors or popular investors based on how much assets are copying them. So the most popular investor on eToro, who's actually based in the UK, just manages his retail account in eToro. He has more than 30,000 people copying him with more than $150 million, and he gets paid $150,000 a month just to sit in his house and manage his own investments in his own account.
Okay, I'm leaving E2E. I'm doing what he's doing. I'm joking.
That's the beautiful thing. You don't even need to leave E2E. You can do that as a part-time. You just need to ask the members about the trends that they're seeing in the markets, and then you should invest based on those up-to-date trends. And if you'll do well, you might create for yourself a second income.
Thank you. So I'm tempted to ask you who it is, but I'm not going to, because I'm going to encourage everybody who's on our reception today that you need to log into eToro and find out for yourself. So we'll keep it a secret. I'll be shot afterwards by my members for not asking you, but hopefully that's the way that we're all going to get onto the platform, because we need to know who this gentleman is or lady earning 150,000. Was it pounds or dollars a month? Not that it makes
$150,000 a month.
Wow, that's impressive. Gosh, and so are there quite a lot of people, Yoni, that are sort of similar? So he's obviously the top one, but do you have like the top 50?
You can actually browse the network. You can see hundreds of thousands of portfolios in their track record. You can sort their track record. You can actually search people. If you'll search for just people who generated more than 10% returns over the past 12 months, you'll find more than 30,000 people with a medium risk portfolio that generated more than 10% returns. So you can just search and browse people from all over the world. You can see their performance and you can automatically copy them.
Okay, I think you're going to get an influx afterwards. Okay, so just wanted to ask you, I mean, obviously the social networking element, that is very different. I'm not aware of other trading platforms, but are there other trading platforms that have followed in your footsteps and started doing something similar?
We've seen over time a lot of companies trying to do what we've done, both startups as well as large companies who tried to copy us. So as the inventors of copy trading, we can only say that copy is a compliment. But we've been able to outscale the competition in what we've done. I think we are the only a social network for investors that has over 20 million registered users. I can try and explain what has always been different between our strategy to others, but a part of that is the global nature of what we're doing. A lot of the competitors that we've seen along the years were very local. There's a network effect, obviously. In a social network, there is a network effect, right? Of people joining the network, creating a dialogue. Here, there's another network effect, which is a time-based network effect, because people feel comfortable copying someone only after seeing a track record of 2 or 3 or 4 years. So the longer the track record we have of customers in eToro, that creates a time-based network effect, because suddenly we have thousands of people who consistently have generated double-digit returns over a longer period of time.
Okay, understood. Now, a lot of people, I know they were very keen to hear who were your first direct investors in eToro, and then we want to hear your sort of fundraising journey.
Sure.
How many rounds did you do? Yeah.
So it is an interesting story, because we were actually pitched by a banker who then introduced us to angel investors. So I think we met probably 40 to 50 different angel investors. One of those angel investors, his name is Guy Gamzu. He's an Israeli angel investor, considered one of the top angel investors in Israel, and he sort of took us under his wing, my brother, myself, and Dudu. And he started working with us really on the pitch and really defining the story. The original name of eToro, by the way, was Tradonomy, so a trading economy. We created what today I think almost doesn't exist. We created back then a business plan. I think business plans don't exist anymore, but like a long form Word document of 60 pages explaining our thesis in text. Today people pitch only with presentations. And then we went and met, as I said, 40, 50 different angel investors. I think probably 12 to 14 of them initially invested in eToro. We raised $1.7 million at a $3 million valuation for basically, you could call it in today's terms, a seed round. Mm-hmm. That was our first round of financing. A part of that group was also BRM, which is a private equity. Back then, it was a VC and a private equity owned by one of the top high-tech investors in Israel, Eli Barakat, and he led the second round eventually in eToro. And after that, which was roughly, again, it's all a bit more complicated, I'm simplifying it, was roughly raising $4 million at a $20 million valuation. And after that, we went to the US. We met Howard Linzen, who is still an investor of ours, the founder of StockTwits and Social Leverage. And he basically started looking at the company at the same time that Spark Capital, which is one of the top Boston-based VCs, came. They both came to Israel. They met us. They eventually led 2 rounds, one at 50 and one at $100 million. It was, I think, a year after a year. Later on, I think this was 2015, we decided that we wanted to raise money from strategics. We took an advisor because we knew we wanted to raise at least $50 million. At that time, I think our revenue rate was about $50 million revenue rate. And we wanted to raise from strategics. We thought back then that banks at some point are going to invest in fintech companies and then embed their technology within the bank. So we actually raised from a couple of strategics, Commerce Bank, Spare Bank, Pegan, so very large financial institutions. We raised a total of $100 million back then. I'm sorry, I missed one. Sorry, I missed one round, which was $30 million, a $200 million valuation. Later on, we raised another one, which was $100 million at $800 million valuation. and that was the last one. So that was 2017. And this year we announced, and we're very excited about this, that we raised $650 million as a PIPE transaction, which is a private placement, into a SPAC, which is another $250 million. So a total of $900 million fundraise at a 10.4 post-money valuation. And the PIPE was a lot of great investors, Third Point, one of the top hedge funds in the world, Ion Group, SoftBank, Wellington, and Fidelity, who both manage over $1 trillion. So a great group of investors who basically led the PIPE into our SPAC.
Wow. So I know
you wanted the entire journey, so I gave you the entire journey.
So you know the first round where you raised the 1.7 million, Yoni, what year was that in?
2007.
So that was in the first year. As you launched, you raised money, and then this is how. And what's the thinking? And I'm going to ask everybody, if you'd like to ask a question, if you just raise your hand on the chat function, we'll open it up now. What was the thinking? Why is SPAC? Because it's not a popular way of doing things. It's becoming more popular.
It's a very popular way. It's actually more popular than going public regularly these days in the US.
Okay.
So there has been, in the first quarter of this year, more SPACs IPO'd than traditional IPOs. So generally, again, there are, I would say, three ways to go public. They all have their pros and cons. I can probably at some point we'll be able to give sessions only on that. But there's the regular route, which is you raise money from institutionals. There's direct listing, which means you just place your shares on the stock exchange and let directly both retail investors and institutional investors. So one has pricing where institutional investors basically negotiate with the bank the pricing. One is that the market prices the deal, and a SPAC transaction it's basically an innovative way for companies to transition from a private company to a public company. I think more than $100 billion was raised over the past 12 months for SPACs, which are looking to acquire companies or to merge with companies to go public. And I think this year, or maybe it's the last 6 months, more than 100 deals at a valuation of more than $350 billion were already announced on the way to close. And the difference is you bring in what's called a sponsor. So sponsors are the people who actually raise the money for the SPAC. They look for companies who they believe need to be public or should go public, and they basically accelerate that process. So they come to the company and they create the merger agreement to basically bring that company into the market. In our case, because we're based on the majority of the management team is in Israel, although we have offices in 14 different countries, we thought for us getting an experienced sponsor group who has done many SPACs. So this is the Fintech group led by Betsy Cohen, which this is their 8th SPAC, and she's sat on many public companies board, and also had the experience over the past, I think it's 35 plus years of running fintech companies alongside public companies in the US. We thought for us, that's a great partner to help us with a transition from a private company to a public company. So it's really about partnering rather than doing it on your own. And it's really about partnering and pricing with that partner the valuation versus letting the market do it on its own.
Thank you. No, that's really clear. I think you're absolutely right. It does gives you a little bit more flexibility through the partnering. And I'm keen to bring on if would anybody like to kick off with the first question? I know the Shara's in Boston. She's probably. Am I right in saying SPAC is a lot more popular in the US than the UK? And
yes. There's a reason for that, by the way. And this is all about mechanics eventually. But in general, capital markets are all different. US capital markets, I would generally say, are the most sophisticated capital markets. But the biggest difference between, again, I'm not knowledgeable very much about UK SPACs, but the biggest difference, to the best of my knowledge, between UK SPACs and US SPACs is in US SPACs, 99.999% of deals gets executed and approved by everyone. So when you do a SPAC in the US, you almost know for certain that that deal is going to close. And that is because they separated between what's called the redemption and the voting for approval. So if I understand correctly, in the UK, those are intertwined. So if shareholders don't like the deal and want their money back, they can basically, they'll vote down the deal, or they can't redeem their money. In the US, people can actually say, give me my money back, but I still approve the deal, so continue with the deal. So it's different mechanics which created that huge explosion in SPACs in the US.
Got it. Thank you very much. That's very, very clear and very helpful that you've run through that. I'm wondering, I can see a lot of our members and people who've built very, very big businesses. I'm just going to ask if anybody like Steve, it's great to see you, Steve Medencia. Tushara's here. She's based in Boston. She's one of our investors. Would anybody like to just talk and ask a question? Because I've got lots of questions. Steve, go ahead. Nice to see you.
I can also talk about Bitcoin or about the markets if you want.
I think we definitely want to touch on Bitcoin and blockchain and all of the cryptocurrency. So I don't know if anybody would like to unmute and please feel free to ask a question. Steve, you're on mute. Steve, you're on mute. Yeah.
The host had to unmute me. So that's fine. Yoni, because you're doing so much around SPACs, I'm just curious about, do you have a big concern about going the SPAC route, that maybe because you're so deep into it and other people just read the headlines all around the world?
Do I have a concern? Not at all. I think it's a innovative way to bring companies from the private sector into the public sector. I think that in general, 2 years ago or even last year, people were complaining that all of the returns of high-tech companies and of growth companies, all of those returns are left in the hands of very few institutional investors like VCs and PEs. What the SPAC process did to the US markets, it created suddenly 300 groups who are looking for these deals and are trying to accelerate. So instead of companies going to the market at 10, 50, $100 billion valuation at a very late stage, you have now this group of sponsors who raised money and are now trying to bring in companies to the market at a less mature phase. Now, we are a relatively large company, so we generated over $600 million last year in total commission, and we have 1.5 million funded brokerage accounts. So we're at the scale where we could have done also a traditional IPO or a direct listing. But generally, what they do is they bring into the market as SPACs, and I think this is, by the way, this is interesting in my view for retail investors, right? Because it brings into the market companies at different stages of growth, and it accelerates that transition from private companies to public companies, which again, because I'm a very big believer in retail investors, I think they should have a stronger voice in capital markets. I'm happy that they can now participate in significantly more companies' success.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. So Tushara, who I mentioned earlier, Tushara Kanakaratna, she's an advisory board director of E2E. She's normally based in Boston, but she travels. Tushara, would you like to ask a question? And then I'm going to move on to Sheetal Walsh and then to Melvin Mehta.
Thank you, Shalini. I'm sorry I can't be online, but I will quickly ask my question. Firstly, want to congratulate Yoni on your company's success. It's always wonderful to see a growing and thriving entrepreneur, and thank you for sharing your story with us. It was very inspiring. So my question was around the SPAC in terms of any concerns that you may have with the valuation of a SPAC. I think in the US, as you rightly stated, they have been a lot more effective in the SPACs that have happened in the last 2 to 3 years. However, there's also a pattern of the valuations reducing over a period of time. So I was just curious in terms of concerns. And Shalini, on a very separate note, I am about to sit on a SPAC board, a SPAC that's going out, as well as another healthcare company that's going through a SPAC as we speak. So SPACs have been all over the place recently in the US.
Yes.
So I was just curious to get Yoni's thoughts, because I know
Sure.
he must have been thinking about this deeply.
First of all, unlike when we were purely a private company, there's obviously, I need to be more careful in my wordings as we are sort of at a semi-public company stage. But I would generally say, so what I'm saying now is general around SPACs. First of all, companies' valuations is something that every investor, whether retail or institutional, should learn to do his own analysis regarding any investment that he wants to do. He needs to understand what the company does, and then he needs to look at a different type of valuations, whether it's a revenue multiple, an adjusted growth revenue multiple, whether it's an EBITDA multiple. There's a very big difference, by the way. That is one of the reasons that the US capital markets are more effective for growth stage companies, is because a lot of US institutional investors learned how to invest in growth companies and purely look at growth and growth in revenues and growth in certain KPIs. Now, obviously, VCs know how to look at a product. Growth stage VCs would know how to look at the product and the scalability of the business. So every place where you have this ecosystem of investors, they're good in valuing certain type of companies at certain maturity part of companies. In the case of SPACs, what people in general should look at is, one, you should evaluate every company. By the way, in eToro, you can all go to investors.etoro.com. You can see a PIPE presentation, which is all of the public information that we provided to the PIPE investors and what's currently available. And that's correct for every SPAC. So every SPAC post announcement, actually you can go to their page and go to the investor relations page and see their data room. Now, in general, when you have good PIPE investors, so if you have great names who entered into the PIPE investor at a certain valuation, that means you have smart money institutional investors who validated that that is a fair price in their view based on their valuation to the SPAC. The bigger the PIPE, the better the names in the PIPE, the better you have sort of a clarification regarding the level of analysis and due diligence that has been done on that valuation. So again, in general, I think every CEO should always make sure that they understand where they're valued and how they strive to aspire always to higher valuations. I'm very happy that all of the investors in eToro, those who invested $5 million valuation, are now very, very happy because a lot of them made a lot of money, but also those who came in at $200 million valuation and $800 million valuation. And I always tell friends of mine, entrepreneurs, make sure that the valuations in which you raise money are fair and that you understand how you're valued and how you'll be able to be valued at a higher valuation in the future. But with that, people should always make sure that they understand what are the key drivers of both valuation for or value to stakeholders, as well as key growth drivers and key drivers for the users as well.
Thank you, Yoni. Tushara, I think you got a comprehensive response to your question there.
Thank you so much, Yoni. Appreciate it.
And Tushara, congratulations on joining the SPAC board. Looking forward to hearing more about it. I'm going to move across to my friend Sheetal Walsh. She is the Chief Investment Officer for Alberta, so she's calling from Canada. Sheetal, nice to see you.
Thank you, Shalini, and thank you, Yoni, for sharing your incredible experience with us. We're really, really excited to learn from you. I'm just curious, Yoni, from your perspective, you know, when we look at the cryptocurrency space, what is your perception of governments now issuing cryptocurrencies? We've got El Salvador, and you know, as Chief Investment Officer now, I'm getting asked these types of questions that this is the forward way for governments to operate. What is your perception from that perspective?
Sure. So when you need to think about the crypto space, you need to sort of separate two different subjects, and I'll just give my very high level macro of both. One is crypto assets, and out of all the crypto assets, Bitcoin as the undisputed king of crypto. So Bitcoin, and the other one is blockchain technology. And those are two very much separate technologies. Separate discussions. So first of all, I'm very bullish on crypto, but it's very easy, by the way, to be very bullish on crypto if you were early into crypto, because that means you already generated enough gains, so you're always also talking your book. But we started buying Bitcoin to the treasury of eToro back in 2011. So we bought Bitcoin at $5 and $10, and in my view, the case for Bitcoin as an asset class is very simple. It's fixed supply, the 21 million total supply, and the fact that there will never be more than 21 million Bitcoins. And when you think about the level of inflation right now rising in the markets, in the fact that due to Corona, governments have printed unprecedented amounts of money, which doesn't seem to stop, and inflation will be on the rise for the next 10 years, basically means that Bitcoin is a hedge against government. It's a hedge against inflation, and it's a fixed supply for the next 100 years. There has never been an asset with such a rigid fixed supply. And I have this a theory that I like to run, which is called the 42 Bitcoin Club, which is in the future, and in a lot of countries where their local currency is horrible, most countries in the world, other than very few, people will eventually evaluate their wealth in Bitcoin. And rich people will be those who have already 42 Bitcoins. And there can only be 500,000 people in the entire world who own 42 Bitcoins. So if you don't have your 42 Bitcoins, start accumulating your 42 Bitcoins, because you are going to be one out of those 500. And that's the beautiful thing about rigid supply. Blockchain technology and what you were talking about, which is called CDBC, or central bank digital currency, I think that that's a different story, but a very, very big one. I've been a developer, computer scientist that's passionate about capital markets. I remember starting the company. I was shocked constantly. Every year, I still am, by the way, every time I get to another layer in financial services industry is broken from a computer sciences point of view. That this industry, this entire $150 trillion industry, needs to be rewritten. If you're a programmer and you see what's happening there with the T+1 and T+2 and reconciliations, blah, 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 it's like somebody, if, as a computer programmer, somebody needs to destruct this entire stack of technology and rewrite it in a modern way. Now, that modern way, blockchain is one way of calling it, but every asset needs to be digital native. An asset, a financial asset, needs to be able, you need to be able from a technological point of view to transfer it 24/7 anywhere around the world within seconds. And you don't need accountants and accounting and lawyers and legal agreements. You just need financial assets to be digitally native, so anybody with access to that financial assets can transfer it to anybody around the world 24/7. That is a huge difference between where we are today and where we should be, and that's the tokenization of assets, and that's moving this industry, which is, again, this is the biggest industry in the world. It's $150 trillion of assets over a lot of very, very old computer systems with code written in the 80s and the 90s. Those, those hundreds of trillions of dollars are all going to move to a digital native format and blockchain or blockchain format, right? You don't know whose blockchain is it going to be. Is it going to be NASDAQ blockchain, JP Morgan blockchain? Is it going to be eToro's blockchain? Is it going to be Ethereum? But that move is inevitable. And so is the move with central bank money. Central banks today don't know where all of their fiat money is. They just don't know. Therefore, they don't have controls over their money. They don't know how it's transferred. They don't know where their cash is, right? They can't track where their cash is. Therefore, by the way, they can't even do cool things like negative interest rate or interest rate based on financial history, etc. So it's also limited in its features. So moving money into a form of a digital native asset, which will then unleash huge amounts of potential innovation, like give interest to those who have the least, not the most. Don't give all of the interest to those who are the richest. Give interest to those who need it most. If you have the least amount of money in your account, get the maximum amount of interest. There's a simple algorithm, but think about the level of innovation you can build when money becomes digital. So it is, in my view, inevitable for governments, central banks to eventually launch types of digital money. And because by definition, governments will issue something that's also traceable and therefore is not private, that is really the need why you also need to have something that is more private, like Bitcoin, and that is unconfiscatable. And that is also important because the majority of people around the world live in countries where they fear their governments. And the ability to hold money with the knowledge that your government cannot confiscate your money, and the ability to hold money with the knowledge that your government can't track everything you do is a form of freedom, which is important. But both of these tracks, both of central banks issuing digital money, alongside all of the innovation that we're seeing within the current crypto industry, I think we're still at the infancy of both of these tracks.
Chico, you need to unmute.
I can't. Oh, there we go. Sorry. Yoni, thank you so much for that very exciting and in-depth conversation. I'm going to use that to present it to the Alberta government and quote you, and maybe we have a currency and then we do another webinar. Thank
Perfect.
you.
I'm actually writing my email here, so you're all welcome to also email me after if you want to stay in touch.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Shalini.
Thank you. Lovely to see you, Shito. Yoni, can I ask you, that was very, very insightful and actually very interesting to see how you think things are going to change. Which country do you think will lead in terms of government supporting cryptocurrencies and making it more of the, I guess, day-to-day currency? Which country do you feel will lead in that?
We might sort of go into a rabbit hole here of philosophy and politics. But generally, I think that if you look at the governments that were the most advanced in enabling Bitcoin to be traded, right, or enable sort of a lot of innovation within the crypto space, you could say that Japan, Germany, and the US were at the forefront to enable innovation within the Bitcoin community and crypto community, right? So in a lot of different places around the world, if you just said, hey, I want to buy Bitcoin, they would shut down your bank account. It's very hard in a lot of countries. to actually send and receive money from exchanges, etc. But in the US, it's not. It's very easy. And in Japan, it's not. It's very easy. Japan was actually even more advanced than the rest of the world. If we're talking about running a central bank digital currency and implementing it in beta, the most advanced country in the world right now, it seems, is China. Because there is already a digital yuan. And there's also here the difference that if you think about it, a central bank digital currency is a form of control and sort of enabling the government to create something that will enable them sort of more control of the system, where enabling something like Bitcoin to run alongside your economy is really about sort of freedom and decentralization. So that's what we'll see in different countries based on sort of their philosophical view, sort of what is getting embedded faster within their economy.
Yoni, I'm conscious we're running over time, but if you didn't mind, there's questions in the audience, and I'm just going to, James, I'm going to ask you a question, James Tagg. If you just raise your hand, I'm just going to ask it quickly. And Daryl Butlin, if you didn't mind to raise your hand, so let me just ask some of the questions. James asked, how hard is it to make the move from crypto to stocks and other traditional assets? I'm going to give you 2-3 questions quickly because I'm conscious of time.
Sure. So how hard is it to make the move from crypto to stocks and other traditional assets? So if you're a user on eToro, it's the simplest thing in the world. You just open a trade in Bitcoin and then you can close it and you can buy in the same account stocks. If you're talking about our backend, it's completely different. We had to sort of build an abstract, and underneath in one to trade one asset, we go to Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan. To trade cryptocurrencies, we go to a plurality of exchanges and venues in crypto. To trade the stock markets, we go to DMA to the exchanges. So every one of those assets are very, very different on the back end. A big part of what we've done in eToro is we created a platform. So to our consumer, Bitcoin, Facebook stock, IWG stock, which can also be bought on eToro, or gold or oil, all have the same interface and can and basically live one by another. You want me answer? What have you built by the time you raised your seed round? We had a demo. So I was a programmer, and so is the second founder of eToro, Dudu, and my brother is a designer. So we actually came to the meetings with a demo with my laptop, which actually ran a demo, which was connected. Funny enough, this was pre-cloud. The term cloud didn't exist, to a server in my house, in my bedroom, that was connected to the internet and streamed real quotes into the meetings as if this was actually working, which it was not.
I'm going to say, I'm going to look forward to the movie of the Yoni story. I can imagine this on Netflix.
I think you get movies only when you're at 100 billion.
You're funny, Yoni. Okay, there's a couple more questions. We know you had dinner with Warren Buffett. How was that like? And what did you take away from it?
Mind-blowing, life-changing for me. Again, big fan of capital markets since I was very young. I took something very important. It took me a while for dinner, but when it hit me, it hit me. I've been a fan of capital markets, which means I've been a fan of Warren Buffett. You know, when I look at people, whether it's people like Bill Gates or Elon Musk or people like hedge fund managers, I always sort of look at them as people that I've admired as a kid and still have a very high level of appreciation. Like my brother would look at artists because he's an artist and he would be a fan of them. But what I did realize then is that if you read what Warren Buffett has been saying for the past 50 years, it really is also the difference between US capital markets and all the rest is he says it's simple to invest in the markets, right? That's what the person who maybe has made the most amount of money in capital markets in the world says. It's simple to make money in the markets. All you need is to read the financial reports. Don't rely on others. Read the financial reports of companies that you understand their product and believe in their product and believe in their company and are able to analyze their financial reports. I didn't say it's easy. I said, if people can actually do it. And when you ask him, will you be able to generate double-digit returns, the same returns you generated over the last 50 years, over the next 50 years or 10 years, he is very adamant. He says, I will definitely be able to generate the same level of returns, especially if I had less money to deploy.
Right.
And that is in his belief in capital markets and in the fact that it's that people can go into the capital markets, read about the stock markets, read the financial reports of companies, make decisions, and consistently generate double-digit returns is what he's been saying and doing for the past 50 years. And that is engraved into the US culture, which is why capital markets work there, because people trust the system for a very long period of time. And again, very much like anything with supply and demand, where you have a culture that believes in its capital markets work. And it is one of the very few places in the world where you have that large scale belief and stock ownership by retail investors, because people believe in capital markets and that over time you need to invest most of your money in capital markets.
Thank you, Yoni. I appreciate Yoni, and please say if you have to leave. But I've had a few WhatsApps saying, please can we ask more questions and not have the breakout session, because they're so intrigued by your story. So it's I know you're in Israel, so if you do have to go, say, and we will do.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Are you sure? So
Yeah.
I know Kareem. He's at Pamela.
You're giving me an excuse not to go now to my 5 kids and reading them bedtime stories.
Oh my goodness, I didn't realize it was 5. I thought you had 2. 5. Wow, busy. So I know Kareem has a question, and I know that Maya's here. She's actually from JP Morgan. And I apologize. Did we ask Melvin? Melvin, did you ask your question? So if Melvin didn't, maybe Melvin can go next, and then I'll come across to Kareem. Is Melvin there? If not, Kareem, will you unmute and we'll come back to Melvin?
Yes. Hey, everyone. Hey, Yoni. Thank you for sharing. Very exciting. So a bit of a personal question to start. What's your current allocation to cryptos in this market? And the second one is, are you planning on building your own blockchain like Binance did?
Sure. So regarding our own blockchain, it is something that we are considering and researching. We do believe, again, that in the future, all assets and forms of trading and investing will move into blockchain. Whether we need to be the owner of that blockchain or use one of the existing ones is a very good question, which we are discussing internally. Are you asking how much of my portfolio is in crypto, or what is the allocation within my crypto portfolio? So first of all, again, you can just download the app, open an account, and click and search for Yoni Assia. You'll be able to see my entire portfolio because it's public. And for me to actually answer you, what I'll do now is I'll just go to my portfolio so I can tell you accurately as of right now. My portfolio is 63% crypto and 36% stocks, and the rest between ETFs, commodities, and indices. But that is not because I would tell anybody that they need to have 65% of their portfolios in crypto. I don't think you need to invest more than it depends on your age. Again, if you're in the age group of 18 to 45-ish, I would say you can go from 2% to 15% of your net liquid assets go into crypto. If you still have a duration of another 20 years of earnings into your future. But profits, if you make profits, then if it rises, then that creates the distortion. Right? So a lot of the proportion of my crypto as part of stocks is just because I bought early on.
Thank you. Pretty bullish.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I think I'm going to ask Melvin's question. If I can just find it in the chat. He was asking a question earlier, or maybe I can't see it right now. So I will come back to that. I want to ask you something really quickly, which is about the trust gap, Yoni. You've spoken about the need to close the trust gap with the clients, especially the people who you're asking to trust with their money. What's your approach to that challenge?
Time and money. There's also some messaging and positioning about it, but nothing as good old traditional time and money. I think a lot of the marketing we do, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen our ads in a lot of places in the UK, is to consistently, when people consistently see a brand over time, they get to trust that brand. Of course, you know, there's a lot of it, and every difference would be, and every business would be different. For us, there's also regulation, so we're regulated by the FCA. Part of the reason of us going public and wanting to be a public company that reports its numbers is for people to trust us with more money. So there's a difference for someone trusting us with $1,000 or someone trusting us with all of his savings. And obviously, you know, it's the right positioning, the right messaging, etc. But I would generally say that in fintech, in financial services in general, it just takes a longer time to build trust. And our, by the way, was a very, and still is, a challenging choice of strategy, which is unique in fintech, which is we went global versus local. So we went to the US and we went into Europe, but all of the countries in Europe, from Germany to France to Italy to Spain to Poland, we have actually a big office in Canary Wharf in the UK today and are regulated by the FCA. We have 150 people in Sydney, Australia, and regulated in the Australian authorities. We have an office in Singapore, now setting up in Abu Dhabi, in the US, and South Africa. So by defining that we're going wide, because I personally believe that millennials all around the world would have the same appetite, and I want to get them young into our platform, we made it harder to actually bridge that trust gap because we're diluting our efforts across many regions.
Okay. So on the back of the trust and the fact that you built the social platform, my COO is asking me, and probably both of us want to ask you the secret to building a strong networking platform.
A strong net. So for us, it's the law of large numbers. I think it's a different type of network, what you're building and what we're building. But this also, yes, story from my childhood is I used to organize parties when I was young, and I always said that, you know, a party is going to be full or extremely full if you heard from 3 different people that don't know each other, that, you know, that they heard from different people that that's why they're coming to the party. So the more it's like every party gets to that inflection point where now, you know, there's going to be 100 people outside waiting in line. If you bring enough people that have shared the same interest and therefore sort of want to be a part of that party, they'll find that will create the network.
Okay, and a follow-on question from that is, what are the steps that you took to build the networking, the social element of the platform?
I think it's a lot about the optimization of engagement. So there's what's called in Silicon Valley aha moment. Aha moment is sort of where your user says, okay, now I understand why I'm using this, and I'll start engaging more. And that has sort of a lot of different, I think some people call it habits. You create a habit of the network, right? So in eToro's cases, we want people to follow markets and to create a connection so their feed starts to become relevant for them. We auto-populate the feeds with the relevant stocks based on what we know about a person. So somebody from the UK will see UK stocks, UK's most popular stocks, alongside the US most popular stocks for Brits on our platform, alongside things like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and the most popular cryptocurrencies that other people in the UK are investing in, and that is a big difference between the UK and France and Italy and Australia and the US, right? So we personalize the platform, we try to populate it with sufficient information, and then we try to engage the user in a 360 approach, whether it's on the feed, push notifications, and emails to make sure that he gets engaged.
Thank you. No, that's very, very helpful. I'm going to go back to Warren Buffett. I believe there's a bit of a difference and divergence in view around the question of cryptocurrencies. So, and the potential of blockchain technologies. So, what's your difference in view to Warren? And are cryptocurrencies, in his view, the future or not?
No. So first of all, we came there. I was invited by Justin Tron, who bought the charity dinner, famous charity lunch over eBay from Warren, and we came there to convince Warren Buffett about crypto, and we failed miserably. And the opposite, by the way, I came out of there believing more in the stock markets and tilting my intuition to wait, everything we're saying about Bitcoin and a hedge against inflation, that's actually correct also about investing in Disney and in Coca-Cola. So I actually came from there more a value investor, definitely more than he came a Bitcoin investor. Warren Buffett doesn't even like gold, right? So gold is also a store of value that is a hedge against inflation or a safe haven. But there's two reasons that he doesn't like it, and there's like two famous quotes. One is he says, "Take all the gold in the world and stick it in a football stadium. It's one big football stadium. That's $9 trillion worth of gold. So you bought all the gold in the world and you stuck it in the football stadium. Now with those $9 trillion, I can go and buy Microsoft, its entirety, Apple, Google, Netflix, and Facebook, and probably a couple, and I'll still have change. Now, you bought a stadium filled with gold. I bought all of these companies. Now, 10 years later, all of these companies have created products. They changed humanity. They innovated. They employed hundreds of thousands of people that paid salaries. These people went to restaurants. They drove the entire economy. There are new products out there, and probably they've increased in value. What does your football stadium filled with gold do, right? So, and that's logical, right? So from the logic of I want to make a positive impact in the world, you're better off investing in capital markets than you are investing in a hedge against the bad things that governments do, right? Second is he doesn't like to hedge. So why? He says I have so much money, and hedging is a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if I think the market is going to go down, and I, Warren Buffett, decide to short now the S&P with $100 billion, the S&P is going to fall down. So with the amounts of money that I'm managing as Warren Buffett, I can't hedge against anything. And third, I don't want to hedge against the US government. I love the US dollar, and I love the US government, and I wish that my grandchildren and grandchildren are going to use the dollar. So I won't do anything to hurt that. So he has a very good logic to where he is now and why he needs to not like Bitcoin. But that is his case. And since we met him, Bitcoin is up 200%, so he's wrong.
Have you told him? You need to write to him and tell him, Yoni. So there's a lot of people here who are members of E2E. They're scaling their businesses. We've got Ronald here, Ronald Lehman. He's very plugged into the UK government. So Ronald, you need to tell them exactly what Yoni is saying. Otherwise, Japan, France, Japan, Germany, and all of that will be ahead of us. So I encourage him. And we have Philip Maskell. I would like to welcome Nick Rothwell, who's joined today for the first time as well, and Shenaz Engineer. our challenges, what do you feel, what advice can you give all of us who are scaling our businesses? Some of them have exited, like Philip has exited, Nick Rothwell's exited, Ronald and I were still scaling. What's the advice you give us?
Never give up. There's many types of advices, but I think perseverance is probably the most important element when you believe in something and want to build something big. I think today, after 14 years, I still have a lot of belief in what we can build, and that this is the beginning for eToro. It's a new beginning of a new era of growth. But I'd love to do this for the next 40 years. And I think that's an important part is trying to be in a place where you want to do this for the next 40 years.
Mm-hmm. But is there a juncture that, when you know that you have to cut your losses, how do you know, like some challenges that we faced over COVID is, in particular, is I'm one about perseverance.
You lost when you stopped believing. It's that simple. If you don't believe in what you're doing, not for tomorrow morning, you don't believe that what you're doing is what you'd want to do for the next 10 years or 20 years, you lost. Go and find something else that you would want to do for the next 10 or 20 years, because it's a win-win when you do something that you love. And by the way, it's not that I don't have stress at work and I don't get mad at work. But in general, when I take the macro view, I love what I do. I'm passionate about capital markets and technology. I think there's a big change happening around the world, and if I wouldn't be doing it here at eToro, I would be doing it trying to do something very, very similar.
Thank you. No, that's very, very insightful and very honest the way that you've said it. I'm going to ask Urdu to bring up the poll, and if everybody would be kind enough, because this helps us keep evolving and learning. If you haven't filled it in before, we'd really appreciate if you could fill in the poll. But Yoni, can I ask you, we talked about the next 40 years, next 5, what's your ambition with eToro? Let's say 5 years down the line, where do you expect it to be? That's one question. And the other question that's been WhatsApped to me is, what's your biggest challenge?
Sure. So the 2025 is easy, because in the pipe presentation on investors.etoro.com, we actually provided projections for the next 5 years. So I can just quote from there. But we ended Q1 with 1.5 million funded accounts, and we'll want to achieve at least 6 million funded accounts by the end of 2025. So we ended last year with 1 million funded accounts. So we wanted to grow 6 times over the next 5 years. I think that's a very reasonable, realistic, achievable goal for us. And we want to grow our business. We are projecting $1 billion total commission in 2021. We want to grow the business to more than $2.5 billion in total commission in 2025. And again, we have a very sort of clear financial planning that we understand how to get there. And then we want to continue to grow. So a part of what Einstein calls the 8th miracle of the world is compounding. And a lot of people don't understand the power of growth. And that is also the biggest difference between valuations in the US stock markets and valuations in European stock markets. If you're able to grow 25% year over year for 30 years, you'll grow 800 times. So, but it's the same for your business, but it's also the same for your investments. If you'll invest in the markets, I think I remember the math correctly, but so excuse me if I'm not accurate, but $100,000 would become $80 million. If you generate for 30 years, 25% returns and reinvest it. That's mind blowing. And most people, if you ask them this question, they will give you numbers that are a tenth or 1 divided by 50 of that figure. And the same is true for growth. If you're able to grow consistently your business and reinvest in your business and grow 25% to 35% a year, you're able to build and scale a very large business. And when you think of startups, it doesn't sound so scary to growing 25% a year if you're able to expand geographically, if you're able to expand products, if you're maybe even just able to expand 1,000 people who sell whatever product that you manufacture.
It's mind-blowing what you've just said. I think everybody's going to watch the recording and listen to it again. I know that I am. Thank you. Guys, we've got to really take account of this. The compounding thing is something that we've not really talked about very much. And I think what you're saying is very, very sensible and something that we need to think about. And it's not just about our businesses, it's the impact, the global impact that we have on the economy. I'm really conscious it's nearly past. I'd like to say thank you to everybody who's filled in the poll. Yoni, when I said incredible, that your incredible journey, I underplayed it.
Thank you very much.
I really underplayed it. And disruptive, I've also underplayed it. I need to go into the thesaurus or the dictionary and find more words to describe the way that you have absolutely built such an incredible business. And I love the fact that there's the social purpose around it in terms of opening up the markets to our youth. My final question to you is, how can we help you?
We're always looking for partners. We're always looking for great people in eToro, and we're always looking for clients. So you can either be one of those or bring us one of those, and that's the best help you can be. But we have a great office in the UK, a lot of talented people. We're always hiring in the UK, and it is our biggest market as well. So always happy to find partners, clients, and eTorians or employees of eToro.
I like that. Forget Etonians. Let's talk about eTorians. That is pretty impressive. So, Yoni, thank you hugely. We've really, it's been a massive privilege, an unparalleled opportunity. And I think everybody wants to say congratulations, wishing you the next 40 years plus of success and that growth. We would love to partner with you much more. And see how we can really help you build eToro further. I know Richard has been on the line. Richard, we couldn't do this without the partnership that we have with IWG and Richard's support. So Richard, thank you very much. And importantly, our community. I can't wait to see everyone back in person at our physical events. So we will aim to do that later on this year. I'm seeing Lucio there. He and his wife are investors in E2E. I can't wait to see him. I haven't seen him for, I don't know, 18 months or so. So the next event again is online because the government's extended the lockdown. So if you're a business of 25 million turnover and you're looking to sell or raise, this is in the private markets or public markets, I guess. We're doing a very interesting event with one of our board directors. His name is Robert Kilgour. He built the largest nursing home chain, healthcare chain in the UK called Four Seasons. He's speaking along with a lady called Cecile Renaud. She just sold her business for 50 million in maternity wear. And along with a friend of mine, his name is Tim Weller. He's the chairman of Trust Pilot. That's just done a massive IPO as well. And really, it's a private event for about 30 to 50 people. If you're interested in joining us, it's on the 29th of June. This one is in the morning, so drop me a line if you'd like to join. And we have a lot of different benefits that we are building. And if you want to use the lounge passes that Richard has kindly offered, it's free. As long as you're a premium member of E2E, so we hope you'll join us. So I've had the most incredible experience. Yoni, I could talk to you for ages, but I know you've got 5 kids waiting for you. So thank you so much. And Richard, thank you. And everyone, have a lovely evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you to my team. I couldn't do this without my team. They're amazing.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, Yoni. Thank you. Bye, everyone.